In everything of life, the world is so big, and we say that God so loved the world, and God indeed does love the world. But that doesn't mean that because he loves the world that he forgets you. It doesn't mean that because he loves the world that he doesn't have the consideration for one individual person or for one individual story. God is so powerful to make the world and care for the world, but he is also loving to invest in one person as if you were his entire world. That is the huge difference between God and us. We may make the world of one person, but he remembers every person. And the child that she had in verse 20, it says, it came to pass in the process of time that Hannah conceived and bore a son and called his name Samuel, saying, because I have asked for him from the Lord. The name Samuel means heard by God. Heard by God. And why do you think she would have called him heard by God? Because it's a prayer and because it's a reminder of God's faithfulness, that when we pray, he listens. When we pray, he remembers, he knows, and he answers. Every day she would have seen that boy, she would have known God is real. There is my son. There is the promise to the prayer. There is the response, heard by God. And that child was dedicated to ministry for the rest of his life, and would not only be an encouragement to Hannah, but would be an encouragement to many. Because Samuel, unlike some of the others in the Old Testament, was a judge, was a prophet, and a priest. What a threefold blessing. A judge, a prophet, and a priest. This is a little quote that I read on this story that I thought was quite insightful. You know, when we look at, say, Samson, or we look at Isaac, children of promise. But here it says, the story of Samson introduces him as a child of promise. But the story of Samuel introduces him as a child of prayer. Samson's birth was foretold by an angel to his mother. Samuel was asked of God by his mother. Both together intimate what wonders are produced by the word and prayer. God keeps his promises, that's for sure. But God can also answer prayers where he has not promised and will deliver. Because God is well able to do beyond what we can think. And I'm sure that when he gave Samuel to Hannah, it was a way of showing everybody, whether there has been a promise or not, I can answer a prayer. I imagine all those in the community would have said, but Hannah, you can't have children. No, but God gave him to me. He was a miracle child because God wanted to do that. As the story ends, it says there in verse 27, for this child I prayed, and the Lord has granted me my petition which I asked of him. Therefore, I also have lent him to the Lord. As long as he lives, he shall be lent to the Lord. And they worshipped the Lord there. Hannah did not forget the promise that she also made to God. And she said, I promised that if God gave me this child, I would give him back to the Lord. And you know, when we go through that process of dedicating children in the church, we're in effect doing the same thing. We're recognizing that everything is a gift of God, including children, that they are not ours. They belong to God. We are there as stewards to steward the people under our care, but they belong to God. And Hannah recognized this son is not just my son, he is God's son. And I look at that sacrifice, her son that she gave up, not altogether that different from God the Father, who also gave up his son. And when I look at mothers and all the sacrifices they make, it reminds me of the love that God has for us, that he said, I'm not going to leave you there. I know you're going to struggle, but I'm going to send my son, my beloved son, to serve you, to minister to you, to save you. And for all the days that Samuel lived, he served people, he ministered to people, and he did everything to point them to Jesus who would save them. Wherever we are in our journey as parents, it is never too late to make a difference for your child. Maybe they're an adult, maybe they're 40 years old, I don't know. But we can still make a difference. Whether it's through prayer, whether it's through modeling a life of service, whatever it is never too late to do that. I want to end with a story about a mother who was caught in the earthquake in Japan many years ago. And when this earthquake happened, there were rescuers that came onto the scene, and they were looking through various houses because people, houses had torn into pieces. There was rubble everywhere. And so this rescue team came through, and there was a house, and they saw that there was a woman, and this woman was almost like in a pose of prayer. She was knelt down and her hands were together. And as they tried to get close, they thought, we hope she's alive. But as they got closer, they realized that she was dead. So they thought, well, no one else seems to be in the house. Let's keep going and rescue people in the next house. And so they went away. But someone from the rescue team said, no, I have this sense that we need to go back. I don't know why, but I sense we must go back. They went back. They went back to that same lady, and they heard the sound of a cry. And as they came closer to the woman and sort of looked at her, they realized that she was holding something, and that what she was holding was a baby. The whole building had collapsed onto her, but she had a baby rugged up in a blanket inside her arms. And when they opened her arms, there was the baby crying, and he was fine. And there was a little phone that says, if you can survive, you must remember that I love you. Everything that mother did was worth it for her child to live. If you survive, you must remember that I love you. I sort of look at our parents, or those of you who are parents, and I wonder how many people have made sacrifices like that. Maybe not as extreme as that, but how many times have we protected and sheltered your child? And that is what a mother is like. A tennis player by the name of Andre Agassi is one of my favorite tennis players. I know he's been retired for some time, but in 2011, he was honored and inducted into the Tennis Hall of Fame. And he had to give a speech about all his accolades. And he sort of said, well, look, you're recognizing me here for my tennis career, but how many times are there people who do amazing things and they're never recognized? They win their own private Grand Slam. And he said, I want to acknowledge, he said, teachers, nurses, parents, and caregivers. He mentioned those categories: teachers, nurses, parents, and caregivers. And he said this: they know already what took me decades to figure out, that we are here to do good quietly, to shine in secret, to give when there's no crowd applauding, to give of ourselves to someone who can offer us nothing. I think those words are pretty great from someone who claims no religious belief, who claims no Christian affiliation, and who says we are not here to gain applause. We are not here to get our own standing ovation. We are not here to be seen. We are here to serve. And if there's anyone who knows that, a mother knows that. God's grace is greater than our circumstances, our sorrows, and our sufferings. God fulfills his promises and grants us our requests for the things that he may not have promised. And God has sacrificed all because of love. Our mums have often done the same. Hopefully today and tomorrow we will remember our mothers. We will remember those who are mother-like figures, and we will thank God for what we have.